Hello and welcome back to the Cavalier's Tale. So I've not been around for a good couple of months and I've just checked. My most recent video was another one of these for the Alpha 2 update a couple of months ago. My life stuff gets in the way sometimes, so it's easy to get games in. It's not so easy to get battle reports done, unfortunately. But I have found time to do one of these, thankfully. Very excited to go through the third version of the Alpha for Kingdom of Equitaine. I've got the old book here on the right. Oh, hang on. There we go. Got the old version of the book here on the right, and we've got the Alpha 3 version here on the left. So anything with red text, this is the stuff that's changing. It's the stuff that's changing on the left, old stuff on the right. New stuff on the left, old stuff on the right. So let's get started, have a look at what's changed. So I'd normally have one version and we'd just go through that, but I don't have a changelog at the end for what's changed points wise. So to help myself and to help you, we've got two versions. You on the left, hold on the right. Let's get started. So no changes to the blessing. So the layout is slightly different because this is an old Google Doc before it's gone into latex, so that's why that's different. So Ordeal has changed. Instead of being an Aegis bonus now, it's combat res bonus. So essentially the same qualifiers. You have to be in combat with a separate unit that has either honesty or courage, and if so, then you get in +2 to your combat res for that whole combat. So that's only one per unit, or rather one per combat. So you can't have like 3 Ordeal units and 1 courage cowboy to get +6 combat res. It's only +2 regardless of how many different units are in the combat. So this is a really nice change, I think. It couples with something that's happened to the reliquary later on as well. It just makes a little bit more sense than having almost demonic infantry for core, and it feels like a nice bonus because obviously knights have lost combat res for their ranks. So this kind of brings it back in, but you've got to play mixed arms, so it's a nice, you know, support for the ranked units in the army. I think this is going to be really interesting. I think potentially it could really buff up Castellan cowboys, because... Hello. Yeah, you being noisy? I think it could buff the Castellan cowboys if you get a random dude on a horse into the flank of a unit while a courage unit has charged it in the front. Then you've got a charge, flank, and Ordeal +2 combat res. He's brought in 4, which is very nice. Or you can do it with yeoman outriders. Potentially we might see yeoman outriders being used for something other than chaff, finally, with a standard. Very, very interesting, potentially. But we will see. So next thing to change, just some clarifications with the Orison Rule. Several instances of an effect on the same model are not cumulative unless specifically stated otherwise. That's all been removed and it's been put on the Sainted thing. So Sainted instead specifically says, but the model does not benefit from this additional Orison. So this doesn't change at all how the rule works. It's just for clarification for, you know, the only exception to the rule of you can only have one Orison on a unit is the Sainted, so clarifications have been moved onto that just to make it a little bit more sensible. Next one is the Bastard Sword. So for Alpha 2, it was hand weapon +1 strength, and first round of combat is +1 AP. We've gone back to the Alpha 1 version, so it's +1 strength, and in the first round of combat, it's either a spear if you're infantry or a light lance if you're not infantry. So we've done this because Questing Knights could march up, sit in front of a unit, and always gain their +AP in the first round of combat. With a Rending Banner, that means they're Strength 5, AP 3. They get rerolls to wound and lethal strike against a particular unit. So Alpha 2 was a big buff for Questing Knights, and that's a bit of a problem, really. So we've gone back to Light Lances, so they need to get the charge off their extra armor penetration. So I don't know, I think maybe I would have preferred to see something entirely new, but I think this is definitely better for quests, right? It's more interesting for Forlorn Knights as well, because it means they fight in extra ranks. They get extra agility, so it's a really nice buff for them, and the changes to them as a unit is really interesting as well. So yeah, ups and downs, but I think more ups than downs here, which is nice. Hereditary hasn't changed. Knightly Principles, we'll do that now, I suppose. So we'll switch through the rest of this, ignore the rest of that. Honor is staying the same. Valor has gone up 5 points. Justice is staying the same. Excellence is staying the same. Faith has gone down 5 points. Forbearance is staying the same, and Generosity is a mere 5 points at the moment. So if it doesn't get taken soon, yeah, we'll see. But only 5 points for that. I think potentially it should be a really good. It depends with the changes to Ordeal units and how Ordeal works as a blessing. I think we might see more Generosity now, because we might see more Ordeal units. It might be worth giving this to, like, you know, a Paladin or your BSB or whatever. So yeah. I mean, you know, for 5 points, it's better than a kick of the teeth, right? Next up is special items. So let's do Uthers Metal first. Scroll up through here. Alright, so Uthers Metal used to be an area attack, strength 6, AP 3, but you only get to use it once, and you have to be charging, you have to be in, you know, all sorts of qualifiers, and it only works for 1 round of combat. So it's gone up by 10 points, but now it's a lance or light lance enchantment. It ignores parry, becomes magical attacks, which I think is, you know, there we go, it's the same. At the start of the initiative step, in which the wielder's close combat attacks will be performed, nominate 1 enemy unit engaged with the wielder's front facing. The wielder gains +1 attack value up to a maximum of +5 for either each rank or each file, depending on whether you're engaged with the front, the flank, or the rear. This is awesome. I imagine we might see some comparisons with Paired Weapons Hero's Heart, but the bonus of this is you're always getting loads of extra attacks, because you should be fighting what you want to be fighting, because this will be put on a cowboy, or, you know, it's a lance or a light lance, so you've got to be cavalry, so you're going to be fast, you're going to be maneuverable, you're going to be fighting exactly what you want to be fighting. And it's one-handed and still ignores parry, so you can get a shield on it, which means it's really good for, well, it's usable on a hippogriff. It was Paired Weapons Hero's Heart, you can't use that on a hippogriff really, because you lose the shield, you lose too much armor. If you're fighting the right stuff all the time, this is great. Like on the charge, you get a load of strength 6 AP 3, and after that it's strength 4 AP 1. But I mean, you know, if you're running shamanism, you can give yourself a strength buff, you can give yourself battle focus and really start pumping out the attacks. And you know, it all ignores parry, so like if you're just rolling dice, you're gonna get some stuff eventually, right? And if you're fighting the right kind of thing, strength 4 AP 1 doesn't really matter, because you should. I think this is really cool for a support character, not necessarily the sort of thing you're going to be seeing on a Sainted or anything, but it's a nice weapon for a BSB, it's a nice weapon for, like, you know, a support paladin, or a Castellan or whatever. So I think this is really cool, or potentially, you know, even like a cleric with a light lance, because it gives him extra attacks, it means he's actually doing something rather than just raising his guys. So I think that's really cool. I think we might start seeing some use here for that. Next is Mortal Reminder, that's gone down 5 points. Prayer Etched is changed from the bearer to the wearer. Off the top of my head, I don't know how much that changes rules at all. I don't think it's an awful lot. I think that's clarification. Percival's Panoply has gone up 5 points, unsurprisingly. We have a new item, so as I understand it, this is going to be called Fortress of Faith. So we're seeing the return of an old slim book magic item. The bearer must reroll armor saves of 1. So this is competing with Duskforged, but it doesn't cancel our Aegis, which is very, very cool. And it's only 35 points as well, so it's a little bit cheaper, which is very nice. So yeah, potentially cool. I've been using Duskforged on a Ghostly Guard Hippogriff recently, so why not rerollable? So we'll see. I might switch over to this to give it a go. Sacred Chalice has gone down 5 points. Yeah, there we go. So 25 down to 20. Black Knight's Tabard, completely gone. Right, so we've got no more, you know, back from the dead. No more you know, wiped out by a Crimson Range Vampire, no more wiped out by a Vanandra's Scourge, just to sit back up again and then hit you back with a great weapon with Blessed Inscriptions and Valor. So this is going to be a big, big, big change for character builds, right? Because Percival's Panoply means that you always get to strike in at least one round of combat, unless something really horrible goes on. Which means that great weapons are very valuable to them because the agility doesn't really matter. So changing it to attacks against the bearer's model with multiple wounds X lose this attack attribute, you know, for that attack. So that means that cannons will only ever do 1 wound. Things like the Rune of Destruction, Burning Portent, Onyx Core, Godslayer, Kagadai's Legacy, they all do 1 wound regardless of, you know, they lose their multiple wounds attack attribute. So it's really good in one sense, and it's a big protection against cannons and shooting. So it's a buff for cowboys in a way, but also it means you need to be a lot more careful with what you're fighting with your Sainted Lord. You can't just throw him at a dragon, expect to die, and then hit back anyway and kill the dragon. So whether it might be too expensive or too cheap, I don't know yet. I don't know whether it's going to affect, it will certainly have a big effect on what Lord builds we're seeing. So I think this is really good for the book, it's really good for the game. You know, obviously it's a nerf because the old Black Knights Tabard is really good, but it's broken good. So glad to see the back of that item. Hopefully this will be a lot more interesting. This is the one that I voted for as ACS. I just, you know, I think this was the best one that we could ask for, and it's really interesting as well, and it's not particularly unusual in the game either, so fingers crossed, because I've now put my name to it as well. Next up is the Banner Enchantments, so a good number of things have just gotten 5 points cheaper. The Oriflamme's 5 points cheaper, the Aspirant's Elan, after everyone was raving about it being overpowered in the spoilers, that's gone down to 30 points now because no one's using it, because it's kind of difficult to use. Banner of Roland stays the same. Castellan's Crest is no longer plus to combat res. I imagine that's because, you know, with a banner, a banneret, and a Castellan's Crest, you've got a big lance with +3 combat res, regardless of whether or not it's charging, which isn't the way that the army should be playing still. You shouldn't be able to use your cavalry as an anvil, so instead now you can take up to 3 Castellan's Crests per army, and it's a 1 use only, activated immediately before declaring a charge with the bearer or the bearer's units in the charge phase. Failed charge rolls of the bearer or the bearer's unit must be re-rolled until the end of the phase. Other characters charging out of the unit are not affected, so you can't charge a character out of a unit with this, but the whole unit as a whole gets a re-roll if they fail. And for 25 points, maybe it's a bit expensive on the end of, you know, if you use it, then you've used it, it's gone. But with a Banner of Speed on a resplendent unit, with some witchcraft support, maybe with a reroll, it just makes it a lot more valuable to particularly, you know, Feudal Knights, Knights Resplendent, Pegasus Knights. You know, I think this, I like the old Castellan's Crest, but I think this is really cool, and 0 to 3 per army is really interesting. So you could see more Resplendence with this. Maybe it might make Feudals a little bit more interesting potentially. So yeah, we'll see. Oh, and Relic Shroud. So Relic Shroud used to be 0 to 2 per army. It's now just one of a kind, which is fine. I don't think we've seen 2 of any of these, so that's not a problem. Damsel. So some points shuffling around for the mounts. The Pegasus Charger and the Heraldic Steed have got 5 points cheaper each because it's kind of difficult to keep those ones alive, and you want your damsels to stay alive because that's your magic, so those have gotten cheaper. The Fey Steed has gone down 10 points, so it's now cheaper to put her on a Fey Steed than on a Destrier, but again, that's a cowboy and you need to try and keep her safe, so it can be difficult. Yeah, nothing massive there. Then the Equitaine Lord. So with the prominence of Great Weapon, Blessed Inscriptions, Percival's Panoply, and Black Knight's Tabard, the Great Weapon has gone up from 25 points to 40 points. The Lord has gone down 10, so everything else has gone cheaper. So, you know, Sainted has gone up 5, but it's gone down 5. The Bastard Sword essentially is 10 points cheaper. The Lance essentially is 10 points cheaper. You know, paired weapons and halberds are actually you know, free compared to the old one, essentially. It's only really the Great Weapon and the Shield that have changed. Shield, with the change to the Equitaine LAB base cost, is the same as it used to be. It's just the Great Weapon, and that's because we see so many Great Weapons, Blessed Inscriptions, Black Knights, Tabard. Like, I mean, you know, it's the build that I've been using as well, so I'm guilty, as the same as the rest of you. Hopefully, you know, I think the next update, with Black Knights Tabard being changed to what it is, I think the Great Weapon will come back down in price. But just for now, it's to force people to use other things. Not force, but, like, you know, certainly persuade. It's only 10 points more expensive than it was, really. 15, maybe. But it's something that the army needed to do because we had an auto take in the old Equitaine LAB build. So that's all fine if you ask me. I think, you know, it's something that's just needed to happen, and we'll see what happens in the next update. I think so. Nothing too much to be too upset about. The Unicorn has gotten 10 points cheaper, so it's now a 5 points upgrade between the Destrier and the Revered Unicorn for your Sainted and Paladins. The Pegasus Charger has gone up 5 points, so it's now the same price as a Phase Deed. And the Hippogriff has gone down 5 points. So remember, the ones that have gone down in points have also gone down in points on the base Lord. So this is 10 points here, it's 10 points here, so it's 20 points cheaper for a Revered Unicorn Equitaine LAB now. And it's 5 10s, that's 15 points cheaper for an Equitaine LAB and a Hippogriff. So all good news there, all stuff that we like to see. Next up is the Folk Hero. So a little bit of a bigger change for the Folk Hero here. Down 5 points for its base cost, down 10 points for its Sainted, so it's now your cheapest Sainted option. The Bannerman has lost its attack value. It's literally just a Battle Standard Bearer upgrade now, but that attack has been moved to the Castellan. So the Castellan is now 50 points. You get +2 attacks, offensive, +1 offensive, +1 defensive, and a Bastard Sword. This is really cool. So I think, you know, 1 attack base, +2 here, that's 3 attacks, plus the Sainted is 4 attacks. Once you're Sainted, you'll be 4 attacks, offensive and defensive 6. I think potentially this might be a really cool way to get a very, very budget Sainted in. It won't be nearly as good as a Sainted Lord because of you know, offensive and defensive. But if you can keep it as an ordeal, then it might be really interesting as a Phase Deed Cowboy because you can charge it in with some Knights and get a load of combat res for it. Potentially you can give him Cleric, so he's healing himself and gains extra against magical attacks. You can make him a Troubadour. I think this makes it a lot more interesting to make combat characters out of a Folk Hero. Previously, the only way to get to 3 attacks was either Castellan and Sainted, or Castellan and Bannerman. So now you can get to 4. I think this makes this a little bit more of a competitor for a budget Equitaine LAB, which I think is really interesting. Yeah, I'm happy to see this. It's all good stuff. We'll see what comes of it. So the mount options have also changed. I mean, the Great Weapon's also gone up 5. The Shield's gone up 5. This is just to counteract this change here with the base cost. Yeah, and then the and the Longbow's gone down 5 points because, yeah, it's not amazing. So the Heraldic Steed is now 5 points cheaper. Pegasus Charger is 5 points cheaper. The Fey Steed is 5 points cheaper. The Destrier is 5 points cheaper, and the Revered Unicorn is also 5 points cheaper. So all the mounts have gone down by 5 points, which is very nice. In addition with this, I think that's really cool. And mark my words, you will be seeing some Sainted Folk Heroes for Alpha 3. If nothing else, I'll be running them, so I will be correct. And then the changes here. So the Quinn has stayed the same, the Bannerman and the Castellan have changed, as I've said. The Troubadour is 5 points cheaper, and the Cleric is 5 points cheaper. So yeah, lots of little reductions here. I think, you know, depending on the build that you run, it might be 20 points cheaper with a Folk Hero, which is nice. That's good stuff. No changes to the character mounts. Feudal Knights. So Feudal Knights in core did have the Knights of the Court upgrade. That's gone, but not totally gone, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Auto Sergeants have gone down a point for additional models. yeah, I've not used auto sergeants personally just because of the models I've got, but you know, that makes a full unit like 7 points cheaper, so nothing to write home about. But we'll take it, I guess. Lowborn levies, so additional models have gone down 1 point, and shields haven't changed, but everything else is 1 point cheaper, and it's an extra 10 points for the starting unit, but that's neither here nor there either. That's fine. I think that's reasonable because the shields were massively outcompeting everything else. As is understandable. I mean, it's a parry block. I don't think you'd be taking it for anything else. Yeah, again, I've not really used lowborn levies, so can't comment here, but I know it's a lot more popular in particularly the Spanish meta, I think. Lowborn archers, so crossbows are free because longbows are way better. So crossbows are down a point, and additional models have gone up by 1 point per model, and the starting unit's gone up by 5. So it's a little bit of a shuffle here. I think it's an extra 15 points for a 20 unit of lowborn archers, which is what I've been using. So yeah, that's fine. And a little clarification to expert bowmen, unless you're making a stand and shoot charge reaction. So you can't stand still, gain accurate, and then have something charge you in their phase and still have accurate. They'd have to be charging from an awful long way away. But yeah, that's just to be clear, just a clarification. Nothing actually changing there. Men-at-Arms. So we've got a big change here. Points-wise, they've gone down another 10 points for the starting unit, up an additional 1, but that's because every unit essentially gets Forlorn Hope there. Now, it's now called... It might not be Stalwart Defenders, but that's what it's called here. Essentially, it's just enemy units in base contact with one or more models with supporting arms, or, you know, Stalwart Defenders, whatever it is, do not count as charging for the purposes of Devastating Charge. So, and this applies to the Courage version, the Honesty version, and the Ordeal version. So, yeah, it buffs the other two versions. We might see more of Ordo Wardens. I think they're the really cool ones here, but potentially Knights of Florn are really good as well. So, yeah, all good. Ordeal have gained paired weapons and lost their shields, just to make them a little bit more different from Knights Forlorn. I think they were one of the units in the book that haven't seen any play at all, so yeah, we're cool with that. That's sensible. Potentially that's a place where you can put your Peasant Crusaders from the old Slim book, if anybody had any of those. Forlorn Knights don't change, Ordo Wardens don't change, and there's a little bit of points here. So it was 17 points for Ordo Wardens and Knights Forlorn. Now it's 19 for a Knight Forlorn, still 17 for an Ordo Warden, and it's 15 for an Ordeal Man-at-Arms. So yeah, all cool, all good. Sacred Reliquary, it's gone down 10 points, which seems nuts until we have a look at the last bit. So instead of simply adding free Orison tokens to your Orison token pool, it's now essentially the same as the Faith principle. So if you spend an Orison on this unit, then you get one back for free. So essentially you're spending Orisons on the unit for free, which is much nicer than it used to be. Orisons are supposed to be something the opponent can do something about, and with a pair of Reliquaries, you can gain free ones without the opponent being able to do absolutely anything about them. This is much nicer. From you know, very early on, I think this was the way it should have been. You know, it's not fun for an opponent to watch us gain things without having done anything to gain them. So this is a lot more sensible. It doesn't stack with Faith, so you can't just have a Faith and a Reliquary in a unit and, you know, gain extra bonuses like that. It's purely through one token back for free. So yeah, sensible. And a little bit cheaper as well, which is cool, because I think it's just sensible. Knights Resplendent. So here's where Knights of the Court have gone. The units have gone down 5 points, the additional models have gone down a point. Nothing else has changed, but you can now upgrade them for 4 points a model to Knights of the Court. The model gains Bodyguard, Sainted or General with Courage, so that's the same as it used to be. In addition, unless charging out of the unit, characters joined to units with one or more models with Knights of the Court gain Devastating Charge +1 advance. So you don't have to put a unit, your characters on revered unicorns to put them in Knights Resplendent now. You can upgrade them to Knights of the Court, and you'll give their destriers +1 a charge on +1 advance on the charge, which is very nice. I think with grindy characters in here, with just additional character support, this makes Knights Resplendent a little bit better, and I think it's a really good place to put Knights of the Court because, you know, it wasn't, you know, on Feudal Knights it means that you're paying for a core unit out of core, and it doesn't really make it that much better. It just means that it will die slower. So I think this is really interesting. It's a nice buff to Resplendence, and they've gotten cheaper finally, which is good because they're a tad expensive, especially compared to other units. I think potentially you probably want to be playing Druidism or a Cleric in this unit, just to make sure that you're not losing guys horrendously, and it keeps the characters alive for Bodyguard. So yeah, all cool, all sensible. I think this is a really nice change. I'm looking forward to trying this out personally. Next up for Knights Penitent. So nothing changing in the rules particularly. The Order Minister on Orison has gone up 5 points because it's crazy good in this unit. And Standard Bearers can take banner enchantments. Woo! So we can make them move 8, same as the rest of the army. So it's all the same, potentially. Or you could take a Rending Banner maybe, or you could take an Oriflamme and make them cause fear, or protect them massively against shooting, give them a Banner of Roland. You know, possibilities are endless. To a point. Certainly, this is really cool. I think that's nice. I'm excited about that. I really like my Penitent Knights, and I think banner enchantments will just make them better. But you still have to pay for it, so I don't think that's bad at all. I'm happy with that. Knights of the Quest somehow sneak through without suffering any hits. Well, the Knight Banneret. Nope, the Knight Banneret is the same. So yeah, I don't know. Well, personally, I prefer Penitents over Knights of the Quest, but these are still very popular, so I don't know. You tell me. Are they too much? Are they not enough? Go through to the forum and have a look, I guess. Hedge Knights. Hedge Knights have had a little bit of a change. They've gained Fearless for their devastating charge. Their armor save has stayed the same, but the purpose of modelling, they've got a shield, and their Courtier gives them 1 armor. So, literally no change rules-wise. They've got Fearless on the charge. They are 10 points cheaper for the starting unit, 2 points for the extra models, and you can now take 3 units of Hedge Knights. So you could really tech into them and take 3 units of 9. Take some gallantry for your characters. Fill up core with, you know, small units of feudals or auto sergeants or something, and try and play Sylvan Elves with your Equitaine if you want. Yeah, I think the 3 units is cool. Whether or not that's good, I don't know, but it's interesting. Yeoman Outriders. So, as I was saying earlier, I think that potentially with the Ordeal change, we might see these guys with standards. From now on, and maybe a little bit bigger to try and get them into combat, give a charge, flank, banner, and ordeal for +5 combat res. Their shields are slightly cheaper, and it's a little bit cheaper to bring those extra guys along as well. So yeah, maybe we will, maybe we won't. Maybe they're not tough enough for that. I don't know. Either way, maybe it's a little bit cheaper. I like this. 140 for Yeoman Outriders, it's nice. Hooded Men. So these guys have got the new ordeal. They've lost Quick to Fire, which I think is understandable from an elf player's point of view. From an Equitaine player's point of view, it seems like a bit of a nerf to a unit that doesn't get used. I understand why the change has been made, and it has gotten considerably cheaper to take these guys, right? It's 130 points instead of 150. The extra models are cheaper. The ordeal is better for them because, you know, charging into combat, like the yeoman, you can bring in a whole load of extra combat res for not an awful lot. With the paired weapons and AP1, they won't necessarily even be that bad in there. There's a buff to the enlisted outlaws with dangerous terrain only counting as not dangerous terrain for friendly units, which is nice. So you can stick them in a ruin at the beginning of the game, and that's not a ruin for your knights anymore, which is cool. And oh, you pay for hard target and skirmisher for the enlisted outlaws. So the hooded men, as an actual unit, starts as a small little block, which is nice for, like, you know, how big and unwieldy the unit potentially. That's maybe fine. I'd like to try hooded men, but they're in, you know, they're hotly contested with all special knights, so we'll see. I think that's cool. It's an interesting change to this unit, I think. Siege weapons. Siege weapons are 5 points cheaper, essentially. 5 points for the base, 140 for a Scorpion, 170 for a Trebuchet, and minimum range on the Trebuchet is now 12 instead of 18, so it's a little bit easier to get those shots in. I think, you know, for 170, I might start putting like one Trebuchet in. If it hits twice a game, then you probably get its points back, and that should be happening anyway on a, you know, aim 4+, and then long range is 5s, and it ignores cover. So, yeah, it could be really useful in those matchups. If it does chip damage here and there, then that's fine, and that's like a fraction of the cost of what you'd be paying for a big block of crossbows or bowmen. So, yeah, you know, I think this is cool. I think going back down to 140 is sensible for the siege weapons, because 145 was starting to get very expensive for the pair of them. So, yeah, I'm happy with that. I might start trying the Trebuchet out. Pegasus Knights, so they've lost their lance formation, which is very sad. You can't run them 1x3 anymore to get all 3 of the knights attacking. It doesn't make an awful lot of difference because they're on such big bases anyway, but you know, it stops the gaminess of that, so that's probably reasonable. In addition, they've finally got up in points, which is very sensible because they're very, very good. Flying heavy cavalry with 3 wounds is really, really good. And they're large as well, so they get stomps and everything. You know, they're great. It's insane. So they've gone up 10 for the starting unit and 5 for the additional models. So even a full unit of this is only 20 points more expensive. And considering how awesome they are, that's fine. That's not a problem. That's very sensible. It's very good for the game. It's very good for internal balance. It's very good for external balance. So I shan't be hearing any complaining about this. Sky Heralds. So, Light Lancers are now free, so you can take the extra armor save if you don't want the paired weapons. And it's 30 points for the extra models instead of 35. So, big units of Sky Heralds, maybe? Don't know. With the change to Ordeal again, these are really good for getting in that combat res, because these guys can take a banner as well, so you can protect them a little bit more easily. They fly as well, so this is really nice. Might see some of these. Might run some of them myself. We'll see. Next up is the Nyads. So they've gotten cheaper again. It's now 140 for the starting unit. They are infantry, so you can put a damsel on foot in the unit, and she won't be picked out by shooting and magic. The unit is now res 3 instead of res 2, which is very cool. It means they're not going to get completely smashed if you take them into combat now, which is nice. And additionally, they essentially treat water terrain as forests for the purposes of like light troops. So, you know, specifically, units with more than half of their models with water spirits are stubborn if more than half of their models are inside a water terrain with the center of their bases. In addition, water terrain is covering terrain for models with water spirits inside them and contributes to soft cover. So yeah, they can be stubborn in water terrain, they can be stubborn in forests because they're light troops. This is cool. This is a nice buff. They're not supernal? I thought they were supernal. They're not supernal, but yeah, stubborn 8 with you know, your BSB general nearby. That's pretty cool. Lots of hit points as well in there. If you take 10 of them, that's 20 hit points. It's all cool. That's nice stuff. That's good. Yeah. Happy with that. That's cool. We'll take that. The Friar's Lantern. So the discipline has gone up by 1. The points of the unit has gone down by 5. I think these are really good. They're a little bit more difficult, and if you want regular chaff, then, well, I mean, this isn't chaff. If you're taking this as chaff, you're taking them wrong. You take this as, I want to play a witchcraft model specifically for the attribute, and I don't want to take anything else. Take it for any of the spells. You get this for free. This can hold up a flank by itself if you do it right with a unit to zone. I really recommend trying and taking some of these, just trying them out, because they're really interesting, they're really fun, they're really difficult to play against if you're an opponent. Just don't let them get charged. They're not for getting things charging at them. They sit behind a unit and they bounce through them and they make them really slow. And that reduces their charge range. So even in a mirror match, you can start pushing against other KoE players. You can push against Elven Cavalry, you know, Feldrax, all that sort of stuff that's much quicker than you. You can push against them with Friar's Lanterns. I think they're really good. Just don't let them get charged. They're not for that. Next is the Ladies' Courtier. So it's gone up considerably in points. The load of the stats have changed, so it's now got 5 attacks base. It's AP 4 and it's agility 7, so it's real quick. It's got a 4-up armor save, a 5+ Aegis, and +1 Aegis against melee attacks. The Courtier of the Dusk has gone up to 15 points, so it's 450 for this one. And essentially it's exactly the same as it used to be, but only friendly spells that targets the model and or units engaged in the same combat has their casting value reduced by 1. Which is nice, because we don't want to give buffs to the enemy, because that makes them a kind of a bit meh. So this is very nice, that's very cool. I think that's well worth the extra 35 points, or 25, 40. The extra points, however much it is that we're paying for it. I think that's good. The Courtier of the Dawn has a big change, so it's no longer additional attacks. It still gains Fly and Gallantry, but it's now a Wizard Apprentice that must always select Awaken the Beast from Shamanism. And if you're charging a unit that is engaged with the Courtier of the Dawn, or charging the same unit as the Courtier of the Dawn, you gain an additional instance of Maximized, which is very cool, because everything in the army should have Swift Stride anyway. So that means that you'll be rolling 2 dice for a charge range, 1 for Swift Stride, and 1 for the Courtier of the Dawn, which means that the average roll on that with double maximized is, I think, about 10, which is very good, especially with Resplendence in the army, with Witchcraft in the army. You know, you can get very, very high charge ranges with this guy, and that's exactly what some of the knights need. That, like, you know, if you've got a lance, you want to be charging, that's really good. If you've got a model with honor, then you can charge into the same unit as this. And you'll be rolling, you know, you'll be advanced 10, advanced 12 if you're on a heraldic steed. You know, that means your average charge range is like 20 inches, 22 inches. It's very, very good. It's exactly what you want. And also the stats in of itself just makes it better in combat now. The AP2 is a bit meh, but AP4 is a lot more interesting. It's got an armor save and an Aegis, and a decent number of attacks for both versions now, which is very cool. And the final thing in the book, nothing massive has changed here. It's 5 points cheaper. You pay a 5-point upgrade for the Chosen of the Snow Child and the Warden of the Hooded Man. So no change for either of those. But the Champion of the Green Knight gains Stubborn, and while it's fighting in a duel, it gains a 4+ Aegis. So that's cool. So if you're fighting a big scary thing with a magic, well, big scary thing in combat, in a challenge, you'll get a better Aegis. And potentially just means that you're not going to lose if in combat if you get beaten a load. If you could stay alive, then you're probably going to be sticking there, which is nice. It's a good buff, and it's cheaper than the other ones as well, so hopefully that's all good still. Right, so that is everything. We have made it to the end of the book. Well done if you've managed to watch it all the way to the end. Go and check it out on the forums for the design, the design notes from the task team. Go to the forum to give us your feedback, find the download for the rules. Thanks very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.